Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 39. We're going to be talking last night's UFC as well as the latest MMA news with not just Mr. Danny Batten but also our special guest. The show is available as usual, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation first. It'll also be out on facebook.com/AceCast Nation and audio and radio podcast platforms everywhere. So you can watch or listen in any way you please. Of course, we're going to be talking everything and the like. I recently dropped an exclusive interview with Cage Warriors, I nearly said featherweight, lightweight Oban Elliott, which you could check out on the YouTube channel, Facebook page, which was very interesting. Oban, never short of a few words, had plenty to say, including some words for his fellow Welshman, current lightweight champion, Mason Jones. So we got that. We've also got an interview with Jordan, the epidemic Vucinic, coming up as well. So look out for these shorter interviews. But with no further ado, let's welcome my guests. First of all, former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend and 70s porn star, Mr. Danny Batten. How are you, mate?
All right, Si.
What is that?
Well, you kind of just described it pretty well.
So for the audio listeners,
it gives them superpowers.
Yeah, for the audio listeners, Danny's goatee has now become just like a moustache. I don't know what you would call it, but the best I can think of is so if you want it to be family friendly, I'd go with like Magnum, but we're all adults. He looks like a 70s porn star, and joining us is one of UFC's hottest prospects, fresh off his impressive victory at Fight Island, ahead of his next bout in the UFC. We have Modestas Bukauskas. I still can't say it. He even practiced saying it, and I still can't say it. UFC light heavyweight Modestas Bukauskas. Welcome,
Bukauskas. Is that right?
Bukauskas.
Tell us it.
Bukauskas.
You lot said it wrong.
Jeez. Danny, the thing is, you work with him all the time. You should be able to say it. Like, at least I got an excuse. I'm just like reading it and trying to guess it.
I'll just give him a pet name when I see him.
Yeah.
I don't go by his real name. It's too hard.
So anyway, Modestas, how are you, mate?
Yes, doing very well, thank you, mate. How you doing?
All right, mate. I'm good. Very, very good to have you back. It's always good to have you on, mate. I remember last time you were on, I think I called you, when I introduced you, I called you a lightweight for some reason. But even though it said light heavyweight underneath your bloody name, I still managed to say the wrong weight. But I got it right this week at least. So you've got a big fight coming up soon. When is that? And tell us a bit about it, mate.
Yeah, so I'm fighting on October 17th against Jimmy Crute, and I know that it's probably in the headlines now that it's going to be on Fight Island again, which is really good. I really enjoyed the whole experience out there in Abu Dhabi, and I can't wait to go and have that experience once again. Obviously with the team, with Danny, my dad, Denniston, so it's going to be amazing. And like I say, it's just a very, some people say it's a very big step up in competition, and why would you take that in your second fight in the UFC and stuff like that? But I feel confident in my skill set. My training's been going absolutely amazing. Like I said, I've got the best coaches, not just in the UK but in the world. So like I said, I can't wait to go out and show my improved skill set and go out and get a big win, and then put myself into the top ranks of the UFC and start making big moves. So like I say, training's been going great. So I'm just really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you mentioned the coaches behind you. When I interviewed Oban the other day, we were talking actually about Danny and Richard Shaw. We said they were rubbish. No, like we said, because they're outside of America, maybe they don't get the credit which they would get if they were in one of those big teams in America. In the kind of thick of it, of the UFC and everything. Week in, week out. But I think, you'd put Richard, Danny, and a couple of other coaches around the UK, right up there with the best in the world, as you said. Jimmy Crew I would say he's definitely a step up from your, no disrespect to your previous opponent. He is a step up. I think he's ranked 16, is it? Or 15?
Yeah, that's it.
So, if you go and perform as you have been previously, whether it be in the UFC or Cage Warriors, there's going to be a big statement for you.
Oh, yeah.
And someone asked someone messaged me and asked, why have you changed your name, or added name, whatever it may be, to the Baltic Gladiator? Any reason behind that?
Do you know what? It was because I was sort of struggling for a nickname. And listen, my Twitter name beforehand was like Modestas Bukauskas 1. I don't know, it just didn't really have much of a ring to it. It wasn't very easy to remember or anything like that, like especially when I put in my plugs for like my handles and stuff like that. And then actually a Lithuanian fan actually made like a poster for me, and it said underneath the Baltic Gladiator, and I was like, do you know what, that's actually really catchy. I kind of like that. So ever since then it pretty much just stuck. And then even the entrance song that I had out had like a little segment from the Gladiator film. So it pretty much, it was just something that I wanted, a nickname that was different. Like a lot of people, they follow along the same sort of thing, but with me it was like that was the first nickname, like no one else has called that. So I just thought I'd literally just run away with it and take it as my own. And it not only represents my country that I was born, Lithuania, but also the Baltic states, like Latvia and Estonia and stuff like that. So, it just seemed very fitting for me. So, I decided to then change my my Twitter name to that as well. So, it all worked out pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. So basically you stole it from someone on Twitter or social media. That's what it is. So Danny, I'm assuming you're going to be going out to Fight Island in October. Disgraceful, shirking, yet another podcast. This is getting ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But no, I'm only joking, obviously. So before we go into the card, we're going to talk a bit of news, rumours as such. One thing which caught my eye yesterday was there was a kind of a report about Dan Hardy says he's feeling fresh at 38, and if he returns to MMA, someone is going to get it. He hasn't fought since April 2013, I think it was. But there was rumours a while ago. I think it was August 2019 when he went on the Joe Rogan podcast, I think it was. And he kind of said that he was looking to re-enter the USADA pool, and he was kind of edging that way. Obviously, we're another year on from there. I'm not sure if he's in the USADA pool as of now. He could be, I suppose, but I don't. I have to have a look, because I know you could have a look at the list, can't you? But Danny, what do you think of a potential return? Obviously, didn't he retire initially from a health issue?
Yeah,
Wolf.
that's what I understood.
White syndrome, I think it's called. Or
Yeah.
I apologise if I said that wrong.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about the intricacies of what that health issue was, and whether it's something that can just go away on its own, or could take a surgery to put it right. But I know it was due to a health history. But yeah, I mean, it's been a long time out for him, and he's no longer a young man. But not to put anything against him, at the end of the day, as long as he's been training well and keeping himself advancing and improving, just having all those years away from the fight game does mean that he hasn't put all those miles on the clock of recent times. So it depends on what kind of extent he means by coming back for one or two fights, or to come back to hope to get into title chip contention. In what context does he mean by coming back? I just don't know.
Do you think he should be looking to take like a fight in like a Cage Warriors or somewhere like that first, rather than be going straight into the UFC? Or do you think just because of the, obviously he's like a pioneer in the UK MMA, like I understand that the UFC's point of view, they'd want him to fight on the UFC.
Sure.
But from a tune-up point of view, should he take a fight maybe on a Cage Warriors?
No, I think if he's making a return at that sort of age anyway, he's just got to hit it big. Yeah. At that age, you're just not going to have
long.
You're not going to have loads
that's how
of
old I am.
fights in your body. Yeah, you're just not going to have loads of fights left in your body regardless. And, you know, he wants to make every one of them count. He can have those tune-up fights within the realms of UFC. That's possible.
Like a
And
ESPN card or whatever, can you?
Yeah, and I can only but imagine that Dana White and Dan Hardy have a really good relationship anyway, which would allow him that comfort to return back in.
So they probably did until he got all hot under the collar with that referee. I'm not sure whether that would have affected their relationship, but you never know.
Yeah, I'm sure that didn't go down too well. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting news. It's more news, but you know, I don't want to say it's against him, but the reality of it is, if he wants to get back into title contention and things like that, that's a big ask. That really is a big ask. But you know, I love Dan Hardy a bit. It's a great guy, really intelligent guy. I love what he listened to his breakdown and his commentating. Clearly a switched on dude, and I can only but imagine he's become technically better and strategically better in his time away. He hasn't been away from the sport in terms of sitting on the sofa. He's been keeping himself busy. He knows what's relevant and what's not. And yeah, initially I'm excited about it, but I also have one element of me that's a little bit worried, like, hey, you know, be careful. Yeah, naturally.
Yeah, I think so. He said another thing he said to MMA Junkie Radio was Frankie Edgar's still going at it, and he said he felt like he was still in school when Frankie was making his UFC debut. So from an age point of view, I don't think 38 is necessarily that old for a fighter these days. Like if you keep fit and you look after yourself, etc. I do think that you can still fight to that age. The problem is, what was it? What did I say? 2013. That's a long time to not fight. And let's look. If you just look at the man to your left, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like these guys coming up now, they're not. There's no easy fights in the UFC. And when you look at the guys who are coming into the UFC now, the guys who are really hungry for it, the guys who really want to make a statement and stuff, I don't know if coming back after a massive long layoff at 38 is going to work out well for him. But then on the other side, Dan Hardy was, like I said earlier, is a pioneer for UK MMA, and he was a very, very talented dude himself. Modestas, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with Danny. I think, you know, it'll be a quite big ask to sort of try and look to get a title run, especially with all the killers in the game. And, you know, even trying to think, you know, what sort of weight class he'd want to go into. I'm not sure if he'd want to go welterweight, middleweight, or what the case may be. But I think, obviously, listen, I don't know what it's like in retirement and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously he had, like you mentioned, like the health issues and stuff like that. I think there's got to be that hunger. I mean, you're watching fights, you're analysing fights, you're breaking down the technical stuff. There's always going to be that little fire, and you know, maybe in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, there's probably those questions of what if, and you know, what I'll be like.
I could still do this. Do you know what I mean? He must be thinking.
Exactly. It's like, how's the skill set sort of improved, or how was my technical analysis? I think, you know, as well, behind closed doors, no one knows what Dan Hardy's doing. He, you know, if he's trying to make a comeback, he must be training. He must have been all this time, you know, doing something strategic within his training and stuff like that to be able to, you know, pose such things, you know, out in the media and really wanting to fight. So he's always kept in good shape. Like we said, you know, he's always analysing fights and breaking things down on a technical level. So he must have like a really good, like, you know, technical backing and stuff like that. So that will definitely help him if he was making a comeback. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. I think most likely it'll probably go down the course of, you know, maybe like a free fight contract or something like that. And yeah, it's just you know, I'm not saying 38 is old, but in the fight game, especially with a lot of killers out there, you know, it's sort of that's the end of most of people's careers, and he's just now trying to come back. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like we say, you know, Dan Hardy's an amazing guy. So you know, I wish the best for him and stuff like that, and we'll see how he fares. You know, coming back, because as well, ring rust is going to play in effect. So there's a lot of different factors, but it'll be very interesting to see from a fan perspective what he can do now after having this time away.
So I just had a quick look at that Wolf Parkinson White syndrome. which basically includes heart palpitations and tachycardia. Now, look, I'm not a doctor, and I've got no expertise. I've got not my knowledge of that syndrome is literally what I've just read in 20 seconds. But I would think if he had that in 2013 and if he still got it, being out of action for that long, age, things like that, then naturally I would have thought not going to make that condition better. But I don't know. I don't know if it's something which stays with you for life, if it gets better, if it could be treated. But it sounds like quite a serious condition. It sounds like, obviously it ended his career, so it must have been, quite serious to some extent. So there's obviously that side of it as well. Look, I'd love to see him back if he can come back, without risking his health, etc. Other than, the usual risks, obviously. So, Mo, the other thing I wanted to kind of just chat to you about before we get into the card from last night was we got some huge fights coming up over the next few months. And I got to say, I'm really looking forward to, there's one, not next week, but the week after, it's Colby Covington versus Tyrone Woodley. I think that's going to be an absolute belter. But the card I want to get your take on is UFC 253, because in my opinion, and I was talking to Ben Ellis actually the other day about this, I think it's the best card on paper there's ever been in combat sports. So I'm just going to read through the card first, and then I'll get your take on the card generally. So you've got the main event, Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. Right, ignore everything I just said, because I'm talking about the wrong card. I'm going to cut that bit out.
Leave it in.
The card I'm talking about is UFC 254, which is the main event of Khabib versus Justin Gaethje. Then you've got Khabib's brother Umar versus Sergey Morozov. Islam Makhachev versus Rafael dos Anjos. And then we have a long list of other fights which are not on the page, which I was just have. But just off those three fights to start with, who have you got in the Khabib fight, for instance?
Well, I think that's going to be actually a really interesting fight, because Gaethje actually poses probably the best threat in terms of takedown defense, just because he's had such a massive wrestling pedigree. I mean, if you've seen some of these videos of when he was wrestling in college, like that guy's an animal. And then, he's got a very sort of walking forward, like very tough, gritty fighter. I mean, that fight against Ferguson was probably, one of the better fights of the year. And he's very prone to sort of taking punishment and coming back, and doing damage himself. He's got a very walk forward style, and he takes away the legs. Like, he's got heavy leg kicks. Obviously, I'm talking a lot about Gaethje. I mean, the real question is, will he be able to stop Nurmagomedov's takedowns? Because really, that's what he's been able to do. Anyone that Khabib's fought, he's managed to close the range, get in close with him, land some heavy strikes, get him against the cage, get him on the floor, and just absolutely maul them on the floor. Every single person that he's managed to get down to the floor, he's disposed of them pretty much. Even against guys who are better strikers, like for example Dustin Poirier, even though the striking exchanges he looked better, Khabib managed to neutralize that, still get in, still take him down, and still impose his game plan. So that's going to be the question. I reckon if Gaethje can stop the takedowns, and with his sort of forward pressure style with the leg kicks and stuff like that, I think it's going to be very interesting to see who's going to come out the winner in that fight. It just depends who can impose their game plan better. And I can't really say a prediction. It like I say, it just depends which way the fight goes. I think though, if Gaethje stops the takedowns, I reckon he'll be able to take that fight. But then if Khabib does manage to get the takedowns, it'll go like his other fights have gone, just take them down on the floor and impose his will and the damage on his opponents.
Yeah, 100%. So some of the other fights, I'm not 100% sure if these have been confirmed, but they seem to be on the cards from things Dana said. Ferguson versus Poirier, Zabit versus Rodriguez, Robert Whittaker versus Cannonier, and like the Dos Anjos fight, which I mentioned. That is like, if all those fights are on the same card, I would argue that that's the best card ever on paper.
Yeah,
I can't think of a card that's more loaded.
Yeah, they've done a very good job matchmaking. They've made some very interesting stylistic matchups. I think another big fight, obviously Tony Ferguson and Dustin Poirier. That's going to be a very interesting fight to see. And depending on the outcomes of all those fights, is really going to mix up the lightweight division in terms of who the contenders are going to be, and how they're going to sort of work all that stuff out. So yeah, and I'm obviously really interested to see Whittaker and Cannonier and Yair Rodriguez and
Zabit.
the Russian guy Zabit. Oh my god,
Zabit.
like
that's going to be an incredible fight.
For a more stylistically beautiful sort of matchup, in terms of you got two like very creative, explosive strikers, who've got very all-rounded games. When those two clash, you can expect there's going to be excitement for sure.
Yeah, is that over 3 rounds
it's the
or
creativity
5?
For that one. Say again, sorry, mate.
Is that over 3 rounds or 5 with Zabit?
There was rumours that there was going to be the Ferguson one might be a five rounder, but I don't know.
Right.
Not at the moment. I think they're down to 3.
Right.
I got to say, for the Tony Ferguson, Dan, I think it's a very, very important fight for him. Obviously, he was disappointing against Gaethje. He's taken a lot of damage in his last couple of fights. I don't think he can afford to take a load of damage and lose again in terms of getting that shot at Khabib or Gaethje. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if he loses again, you got to take into account his age as well. Age is something that we keep talking about week on, week out, but you got to wonder with the pool of level of potential opponents to try to claw your way back up into contention. It's going to be a hard ask, even for someone as good as Ferguson. Well, let's just see. I think Ferguson's personally, I think his style is just going to be something that Poirier is going to struggle with. It's just the way I think it's going to go. But look at me, I've been wrong nearly every week, so I could be wrong with this.
Yeah, we'll get to that, mate. Don't worry.
Get to that. I know you're on my. I couldn't believe it. I had my head in my hands.
I could. I'm the prediction king at the moment. Do you know what match I'm really looking forward to after that? Apart from obviously Khabib Gaethje, I think it's going to be so interesting, because I really think Gaethje could be the one to dethrone Khabib. I saw some really interesting comments coming out of Khabib's camp this week, though. Khabib said his dad wanted him to finish at 30 fights, which I believe is after the Gaethje fight.
I think it's 2 more, isn't it?
Is it?
No?
I'm not 100% sure.
More?
He might be 2 more then. I could be wrong with that. And then I think it was like the day after, or someone from his camp said that they think that they should make the Conor rematch, absolutely, because that's the fight that everyone wants to see, blah, 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 etc. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. They're kind of... And if that's right, that you said there's 2 more, like the Gaethje fight, and then the McGregor fight, and then he'll sail off into the sunset.
I kept
one
hearing
way or the
about
other. I think that kind of fits in with what he's always said, doesn't it?
But hadn't they sort of penciled in GSP fighting him? That's something that I kept hearing about.
I think Khabib's more interested in fighting GSP. I don't think... I saw GSP say something about he didn't think that he would want to cut the weight because he feels that would give Khabib a massive advantage. Which it probably would. He said he thinks he would lose a lot of his tools, or some of his tools would be weakened. Let me just have a look. But yeah, there's so many amazing, massive fights, isn't there, at the moment, which they could potentially make. I don't think we'll see Conor McGregor until there's fans back in the stadium. I think that's why they haven't made a McGregor fight off the...
Maybe so,
when you think of how hot he was after destroying Cowboy, like, it made sense to get him in a fight quite quickly after that. But because of Corona and lockdown and all these different reasons, they couldn't, or they could have, but they'd have had to do it at Fight Island or something like this. And I really believe that that's why he hasn't fought. because he didn't take any damage against Cowboy. He was clearly focused and fit and everything. So why wouldn't you? He's your biggest moneymaker, arguably him and John Jones. You'd think they would have wanted to get him, up and running straight away. But yeah, that was the last little bit of news. Brock Lesnar, his contract with WWE is up.
Yeah.
And there is massive rumours that he will take one of two fights. So one is John Jones at heavyweight in the UFC. I think most people would like to see that. Can anyone guess what the other fight is? It is not in the UFC.
It's not in the UFC. So let's try and get the promotion. I mean, Bellator does the freak matches. Would it be Bellator? Would that be correct?
Yeah, Bellator. And
who would they put him up against? Are they pulling someone else out of retirement? Can you give us that much of it?
Is it the Russian guy?
Yeah.
Heavyweight. Yeah.
You're on about Fedor?
Fedor Emelianenko. Yeah. But you know what? I was having a conversation with my mate yesterday, and I said if he ends up going to Bellator or whatever from instead of the UFC, and he's going to fight Fedor, I think they should just let him. Don't bother testing either one of them, and just let him fight, and just see what happens. Just let him come in like Hulks. But
when Brock wasn't there like different rules for Brock when he was in UFC last time around anyway?
Yeah, he's. I tell you what, you say what you like about him as like a person, a fighter, or whatever. As a businessman, he is second to none. Like over the last few years, he's had WWE paying him millions every year for like 3 or 4 appearances a year.
Yeah,
he's got a completely different contract to everyone else, and from what I can gather, he had a different contract to everyone else in the UFC as well. It was very much. There was something around the testing, wasn't there? That I don't know. It's weird though, because I thought the testing wouldn't be in UFC's discretion anyway. Surely that defeats the object of having independent testers.
Well, I think he would have to fight in a certain state to be able to have those changes put in place. It's something along those lines. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's all a bit of a gimmick to bring him back, and he's someone else that's no longer a young man, but he's such a big, intense dude, and the guy can obviously generally fight well. We've seen that before, but who knows? I don't know.
He's a star, mate. At the end of the day, he brings in eyes, doesn't he? And he'll do something controversial at some point during the build-up, and it'll be interesting. Personally, I think John Jones would absolutely destroy him, and that kind of takes the fun out of it of a Brock Lesnar appearance for me. Like Brock Lesnar, I find quite entertaining when he comes in and kind of just wrecks or tries to just get stuck into whoever he's fighting. I just got a feeling. I do really believe that John Jones would take him apart. I don't want to say easily, because a heavyweight fight, particularly because John Jones is not fought a heavyweight a great deal, if at all. Who do you think would win out of Lesnar and John Jones, Modestas?
I definitely agree with you. I think John Jones would dismantle Lesnar. They both got a wrestling background. John Jones is more agile. He's more athletic. Well, I don't know if you could say necessarily more athletic, but he's more versatile and dynamic with his striking, which would pose a massive threat to Lesnar. Obviously, the strength aspect I don't think would play much of a part in that contest. Honestly, Jones has done a very good job with keeping people at range and landing really nice strikes. So I think he would just impose that same game plan, and then Lesnar's only chance then would try and rush in and try and hold him against the cage or try and take him down. And at that point, Jones is very well versed at that, at stopping those attacks. So I know we're sort of throwing a lot of shade, saying, oh yeah, Lesnar probably wouldn't win that fight, but yeah, honestly, I just don't think him against Jones would be much of a competitive fight.
No, me neither. Danny, just lastly then, Fedor and Lesnar, who you got? Well,
I'd still go Fedor, but Fedor has shown that his chin's not not what it was, and he's so small in comparison. So they're the kind of things that would go against Fyodor. But Fyodor's no slouch with the wrestling. I do think he'll get taken down, but I don't think Fyodor's if Brock's gonna win, he has to win in the first 3 minutes of the first round. And other than that, he ain't going to beat any of those two guys. Fyodor has still been keeping in it. He's obviously keeping up his training.
His chin's gone, though, I think. That's the thing. But then Lesnar's not a massive striker, is he? He's not renowned for his knockouts.
He's a ground and pound. If he gets him down early, we know he's going to be big with the shots, and it's possible. But all the percentages, in my thoughts, it's going to be that Fyodor's just going to end up scrambling out at some point, and then Brock's going to be a sitting duck for leg kicks, punches, the overhands that Fyodor throws, and I think he'll fold with a combination of exhaustion and no longer have any more valid attacks. So I just think he's dangerous for the first 3 minutes. If he's got to steam in and get either of those guys down early to get off some productive work and hope that it leads to an end. And with John Jones, that's just not going to happen. John Jones is too fresh from all the fights. He's not taken loads of damage over the years. He can still take. You can say he could take a punch because we've never really seen him take a clean one. So his chin's going to hold up well. Good. He stands more of a chance of beating Fyodor than he does beating John Jones.
Yeah, for sure.
But to be honest, I'm not overly interested in seeing any of them. I'd rather see him fight Fyodor than I would John Jones.
Really, I would be very interested to see the John Jones Lesnar fight, just to see how Lesnar would react to John Jones chopping away at his legs, because no one's really ever done that to him. So I really would be quite interested to see how he reacted, because he's quite a grumpy he's quite a grumpy beast, and I'd be interested to see how he would get on against someone because John Jones would be very elusive, and he'd get stuck in, wouldn't he? But yeah, there's that UFC 254, going back to that's the card I want to see. So does that mean you're away for that one, Dan? Just thinking about
that. What's the date of that one?
That was in October, wasn't it? Oh,
yeah, but what's the actual date?
254. So
a bit ahead here.
254 is
that's the week after us.
So that's October the 25th.
I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back.
So when's your one, Mo? 20
on the 17th.
17th, sorry. Right, okay. All right then, let's get into last night, which was a very, very, very interesting card. I really enjoyed it. Another card though, Dan, decimated by the Rona. They lost, I think, 4 fights in total, 3 off the main card, right. Was it?
Yeah, it did make big changes, but they've obviously, got things covered for such events, because they still put on a fantastic card. I thought, still really enjoyed the matchups.
Very good. Yeah, they just lost a couple of big fights, I suppose. Unfortunately, that's just the time we live in at the moment, isn't it? It's
absolutely.
It's just weird. And I've got to say, full credit to the UFC. The way they're handling it, I think, has been a credit to an example to companies around the world, whereby it is business as usual, but it's also about keeping the fighters, the staff, the referees, the commentators, everyone's safe and doing it the right way. So, everyone wants to get back to normal. We know that. But I think they're doing it the right way. And I got to commend them for that. Okay.
Agree.
So, first up, we had Hunter Azure was defeated by Cole Smith. Unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. Mo, we'll go with you first. What did you make of this fight overall, mate?
Yeah, so definitely, obviously.
Wait a minute! Didn't you say it the wrong way around? Didn't you just say Cole Smith defeated Azure?
No, I said Hunter Azure defeated Cole Smith.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But thanks for interrupting our guests. That's all right. Just crack on.
I'm going to listen back. But you're going to edit this.
I'm going to edit it out.
I don't know.
You'll never hear it.
I'm sure you had it the wrong way around.
Gosh, Danny, wanted to take the spotlight all the time. Come on.
No, I know.
Typical
coach. Some of the younger fellas. Let's go.
So,
yeah,
Modestas, what did you think of Hunter Azor defeating Cole Smith by unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, 29-28? I can now cut that in just in case I did say it the wrong way around.
So I definitely agree with the decision. Obviously, Azure fought a very good fight. I know there was things said about Azure in his last fight wasn't using much of his wrestling, but in this fight he definitely used his wrestling very well. I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah, so he managed to get a lot of good control and get like good takedowns. He actually floored Smith with a big shot early in the first round. And but Smith managed to recover and get back into the fight and stuff like that. I felt like Smith's kicks weren't very effective. I don't know if I'm just the only one that thinks that, but
I would go with that.
I didn't think they really did much to sort of bring the pressure away from Azur. Azur did very well to like sort of control Smith against the cage as well. Smith had a couple of good like sort of submission attempts and stuff like that, and he reversed a couple of positions, but to the main part, obviously Azur was just like sort of he was controlling the fight a lot with his wrestling, landed some good shots and stuff like that, and had Smith under pressure. Although Smith did a lot better in the second round, I do think obviously it was a clear-cut victory for Azur. So that's
what about you, Dan? What did you make of it, mate?
Yeah, I agree. Cole's striking overall just was not being consequential to Azur. Azur looked like he was initiating a lot of the potentially aggressive-looking striking. He was stepping forward with his overhand, trying to add maximum length. He had a slight reach advantage anyway, but giving away a good 3 inches in height. So he was covering that deficit in the height that he had with those overhands stepping through, really driving Cole back. Cole surprised me as well by shooting in and engaging the wrestling himself, which nearly got him success. I mean, at one point he had Azur's back, and that was Azur's trickiest dealing that he had, really, other than Smith throwing up some nice armbar attempts that were easily defended by Azur. You've got to give him that. And it just out wrestled Smith, really. He just steadily outworked him each round. Looked really, really solid. When he did have control, he kept control longer than Smith had control, because Smith had his moments. He really did. But he let those moments slip away a little too sooner than Azur was allowing when he had control. It was a good performance overall. I thought initially that they both performed well. I just feel like Cole Smith just couldn't get off any of the aggressions with his strike, partly because he chose to shoot in himself or he's being shot in upon. So I feel like he had part of his game taken away from him, and it made him look less effective over those 3 rounds.
Yeah, I agree completely. It wasn't like super one-sided, but it was pretty dominant. Smith was a bit better, a bit more impressive in the 3rd round, but I just felt like he never really got going. Maybe didn't quite show what he could do on the whole, but Azur did very well.
Yeah,
good fight, fun fight to watch though. Next up, we had Vivian Araujo defeating 11th ranked Montana De La Rosa by unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. Danny, we'll go with you with this one first, mate.
Yeah, Ajura was really impressive. Her striking was just on point, really aggressive, pushing forward all the time. She really pushed De La Rosa to the outskirts of the cage constantly. De La Rosa had her moments as well, but initially, each round, it was De La Rosa's face that was showing a worse picture. After each round, she was getting more and more cuts, more and more bruises, and Ajura was just looking fresh all the time. She did look like she was fading with her energy a couple of moments, but kept getting the second wind. I think she was utterly impressive through and through. We didn't really get to see anything regards to ground. It was pretty much all contested on the feet. It's very much a kickboxing match. But De La Rosa, because she was getting pushed back, just didn't look like she had any real pep on any of her shots. She just didn't look like she was going to do any damage if she did land clean. Whereas Vivian was really sticking pap on her shots. Her jab was like a heat-seeking missile. It really was. Every time she threw it out, it was stuck to her face. And it was impressive, I've got to say, all the way through.
What stuck out for you, Mo?
Yeah, again, agree with everything that Danny had to say. Araujo had a lot of hard leg kicks. She did much better in all the striking exchanges, and she had like he said, a very good jab. That definitely stopped any of the attacks from De La Rosa. She managed to, as well, sort of break the clinch a lot as well, and De La Rosa couldn't get any takedowns at all. And she was just slowly wearing away at her. So yeah, it was a very dominant performance. But like I say, that jab is really what sort of set everything up in terms of the striking, along with the leg kicks. So yeah, it was very, very, very good performance. And another interesting women's fight to watch. Just those girls are really going after each other.
The women 2020 in the UFC women's bouts have just been utterly sensational. I gotta say, they have really kicked it up a gear. That it feels like this year, on the whole, the female fights have been so enjoyable to watch, and this was no different. And she took some damage, man. Like Mo just said, there it was very dominant performance. She was bloodied up, and I thought she did well actually to really not necessarily get through the fight, but just to keep going the way she did. She did quite a lot of damage, but it was impressive, man. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it again. And Danny, you've been a big proponent of the women's MMA, especially like the last year where we've been watching these various cards and fights. Did you think this was right up there with some of the fights we've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. You're seeing a lot of shots thrown, a lot of shots landing. And don't get me wrong, we get some of the guys stand toe to toe and put on some incredible performance physically and mentally, and they look real tough. But the women seem to be like that time and time again. I mean, they just go get from the start. It's just to behold. It really is. I think because they don't have the ability, or they have less so the ability to put the fight away with a single punch. Of course, that's always a potential against anybody, male or female. But initially, they don't strike quite as hard, so they're not getting as many knockouts. But what they are doing, they are lumping each other up, and they're getting some horrendous marks on the face. What was the name of that Polish lady? She had with a massive hematoma on her head.
Young Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, these girls are coming out marked up because they're not putting each other away with single or just two hits. They're having to bang away at each other time and time again, and they wear the fight on their faces come the end of the 3 rounds. Or do they do any 5 rounds? I'm just thinking, do they do? No, they only do 3s, don't they?
Well, I think in the main events they're 5s.
Do they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they really wear it on their faces, and but it don't perturb them. They keep fighting, and it's utterly impressive.
Yeah, proper warriors, mate. I thought another really, really enjoyable fight, which I loved that one. Next up, Brian Kelleher versus Ray Rodriguez. Didn't go too long, only 39 seconds. Ray Rodriguez obviously stepped in towards the last week, I think it was. Or he certainly didn't have a great deal of preparation time. Did it make a difference to the result, Danny?
Well, we'll never know that. But I think if it didn't make a difference to the result, it may have made a difference of how quick that result come about. He shot in very, very early. He got that neck tangled up, and getting caught in a guillotine in the first round really early on, it's going to be a difficult escape. And I felt sorry for him. He stepped up. I just wish that when you're taking a fight on short notice like that, instead of just go rushing in, at least try and warm your body through, and try and get your body warm while you're in there, and sit behind a jab a little bit and feel your footwork out. But he did no such thing. He just shot in deep, didn't get the takedown, then left the neck hanging, and that was it. It was the end. Gutting for him, but well done to Kelleher. He's got a nice quick win on his results.
It was very, very impressive. I thought Ray Rodriguez made a little bit of an error, like you say, by shooting in on him, should I say? And Brian Kelleher locked in that guillotine real quick and real tight.
Very, very tight.
Mo, what did you think of this very short fight? And also, do you think Rodriguez could have done anything different once he had shot in?
Well, I mean, like I say, when you're leaving your neck hanging like that, he did a takedown with the head on the outside, I believe, and then literally Kelleher just jumped straight on it. I think it was a one arm in guillotine from the guard. So, I mean, obviously Kelleher was very confident in what he was doing, but also the shot. I mean, it seemed a little bit like sort of lackluster, so it just sort of just went in and like just shot the head deep, and then he just got the arm straight in there and locked up very well, and it was right against the cage as well, so there's no way to sort of turn out or do anything like that. So yeah, I mean, obviously in short notice, maybe he had more of a wrestling game and he wanted to impose that on his opponent, and but yeah, I think maybe he should have sort of felt out the range a little bit more, land the strikes, and then go for the takedown. But it will be a learning curve for him for sure, and it will probably help him to adjust certain things in his game and come back stronger. So, but a very good performance for Brian. So yeah, nice for him to obviously see that opportunity, take it, and then go and win nice and early.
Indeed. It's very impressive. Next up, we had Bartosz Fabinsky versus Andre Muniz, with Muniz defeating Fabinsky by submission armbar 2 minutes 42 into the round one. Mo, let's go with you first, mate. What did you get at this one?
Yeah, so Fabinsky sort of started very, very aggressive, but then as soon as he got caught with a couple punches by Munoz, he went straight away in for that takedown, and he seemed to be straining a lot for that takedown. Like he was putting in a lot of effort to try and get Munoz down, which he eventually managed to get the takedown, and then it was just amazing sort of jiu-jitsu transitions from Muniz to go for that guillotine, which then turned into an armbar attempt. So it was just a very good showing of jiu-jitsu, and yeah, it was just a bit too much sort of, I think, rushing and being aggressive by Fabinsky, which Muniz obviously capitalized on. And I can imagine it must have took quite a lot of energy out of Fabinsky anyways, just to really try and get Muniz down, which may have led to those errors, which eventually caused a finish anyways. But it's very nice jiu-jitsu by Muniz.
Yeah, impressive jiu-jitsu for sure. Danny, you love a bit of jiu-jitsu, my friend. Tell us.
Yeah. It was good jiu-jitsu. I mean, normally I don't advocate playing off your back. It's not a strategy that we sit comfortable with.
We seem to be talking about this a lot the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. For the most part, you save your energy to scramble back up and not play off your back. Maybe one or two submission attempts, maybe, if you've got a distinguished difference in skill level there. But for the rest of it, it's the only time you play grappling is when you're on top. Other than that, you're playing scramble and get up and get out. But what was impressive about Muniz was the way he set up that initial guillotine attempt, which ended up with that ground scenario. It was quite nicely set up. I just don't like this whole jumping guard thing. Guillotines can be had standing up and on the feet. You don't need to jump to your back for them. I understand that it can get potentially more leverage into them. I kind of get that. And in this case, it worked out well for him because it got into a situation where he's on his back and got the victory. But like I say, it's not a strategy that I think you should be making a habit of, because I think you're going to get more losses than you are wins. But in this case, it just pulled off really well with those slick transitions. But if you have a look at the way he set up that guillotine initially, he was trying to break off the fence by using the tie clinch. He was trying to engage his forearm with Fabinsky's shoulder to loose up a tie clinch and counter those takedowns with some knee shots. But Fabinsky was able to keep on pushing too tight for him to connect his forearm. So what Muniz did, he started moving it off the fence. He started moving off the fence into a sprawl scenario to get that head dip down, and that's how he was able to snag that neck. Then when he did jump the guard, what I did like about the position, which he never capitalized on, was the fact that he got his ankles close. So he closed his guards down Fabinsky's legs, and he had an over-under on the guillotine choke. He had the guillotine choke and then wrapping up that arm. He could have bridged and got the mount position with the guillotine, which is even more devastating, even more leverage. And of course, you have a great secondary option of letting go of it and having that mount position. That would have been a better sequence strategically, but nevertheless, he missed the guillotine. He threw those legs up. I think initially he was setting it up for a triangle, but transitioned it round for an armbar. But the way he did it was just so old school jiu-jitsu. Hold the wrist, step your foot through the loop that you create with the holding of the wrist, and throw the legs up and round. So but Fabinsky was doing initially all the right things when he was trying to prep it. He was trying to keep his head down, keeping head to head. But against a fresh opponent, they can kind of force the issue a little bit because they've got loads of energy to do so. And he paid the ultimate price for it.
Indeed. Couldn't have said it better myself, mate. Next up was Michel Pereira versus Zelim Imadaev, with Pereira picking up the victory via submission, rear naked choke. 4 minutes 39 into the third round. This one finally landed a little bit longer than the last two, so we got a proper fight, and I thought it was a very interesting fight. Danny, let's start with you, mate.
Pereira's striking was really looking loose, crisp. He's quite big at the weight. He looked really, really sharp. And what was nice was he was controlling that clear energy he has, and he has a lot of gall to throw out some really wild strikes, but he looked like he held himself back. He's like that racehorse that just wants to go full bore in the long distance race. You've got to pull their chin down and not let him go. He held himself back, and I think that served him really, really well because it made him have that tempo advantage over Imadaev. Imadev's fault against this style was the fact that his feet were so orthodox to a striker. He was left leg forward, right leg back with a really traditional form. Now, the issue with that is in a cage has a lot bigger space to run because you can circle around and so off. So you've got to have different types of combinations, and you've got to mix up your footwork to cover that extra distance. But he was not doing that. So he was trying to close Pereira down, and Pereira was just being too fast for him. He was playing off of Imadaev's footwork coming forward, saying so clear, so square and so clinical, and he started eating shots. Now, Pereira did have me worried because in the second round he was obviously getting very, very confident, and he started doing his cartwheel kicks, but they take a lot of energy. They really do. They take a lot of energy. Not only can it get you in a sticky situation if you misjudge it completely and get countered with a ground position and so on and so forth, but I have seen him begin to fade because of the amount of energy he's put into these aggressive strikes. So as much as it's lovely viewing, it's not a great strategy to throw out one flamboyant strike after another. Like I say, they're so energy-based. But he retracted back and started keeping it simple. I know a lot of people don't like the goading and stuff, but I kind of liked what he started doing. He started spitting on his palms and indicating, hey, I'm going to slap you like a bitch. But my boy, he literally did do that. He spat on his hands and he kept slapping Imadaev around the face. And he was making it land. He was making it pull off. Why he chose to go, whether he hurt his knuckles or whether he's just goading Imadaev and getting that confident, but he literally just started bitch slapping him. But he went back to throwing. Yeah, he went back to throwing punches as well, but he actually went back to slapping him again in that third round because he seemed to be landing more of his slaps than he was his actual punches.
But what do you think? What do you think irritated him so much that he went down that route of trying to antagonize him like that?
I just think he was getting confident. He knew that if he wanted to stay safe, he could just footwork away. Like I say, Imadaev's, you could have the hardest punch in the world. If you don't have slick footwork to get into range to throw it to make it land, then you ain't putting no fear on anybody. That's why I've never been impressed by someone who hits a bag really hard. We get some people come from other gyms and stuff, and I don't want to talk crap about them because I'm really open at our gym, but you get some guys who'll come in and hit the bag and warm up on the bag before doing the class, and they give you a little look like as if to say, hey, you can see how hard I hit that bag, but that never impresses me. You've got to have slick footwork to make any of those hard shots land, and Imadaev just didn't have diverse enough footwork. He's really going to have to go back to the drawing board and trying to think of how he's going to deal with people with slick footwork such as Pereira, because if he don't, he's going to have this happen to him again. But let's take nothing away from Pereira. It looked like his he's honing his own style. We know he's a flamboyant striker, but he's looking like he knows how to stay there now and stay effective and actually be able to go for the longevity of those 3 rounds and not be a 1 or a 2-round merchant where he looks good as long as he's got the energy to do so. He held himself back very, very well. There was a little controversy about the submission. When he jumped the submission in, they looked back more closely to wonder whether it was a tap or not. Whether it was a tap or not, I think it wasn't a tap, but I can't blame the referee for thinking it is for that split moment. We know that referees are under a lot of scrutiny about stopping fights late. So, I think once he saw that hand, it did look like it tapped momentarily. But I don't think it would have made no difference to the result whether that choke came or didn't come. Pereira, to me, was pretty dominant throughout the whole lot.
Yeah, I thought so. It was interesting to watch, really was, because there was a bit of niggle there, as well as some very, very good MMA. Mo, what did you make of this one?
Very flamboyant and elusive striker. I love seeing guys like that coming out in the UFC and imposing their will with the striking, just because that's sort of a similar style to what I like to have. So it's nice to see him being very effective out there, especially in a small cage as well. He managed to judge the range and judge the distance really well. His feints and his the sort of showboating inevitably actually gave him the openings as well for his strikes. Those open hand slaps, those big overhand rights as well, which he sort of blitzed into as well. Like I said, like Danny said, obviously it was a little bit scary when he started throwing a lot of wild shots. It's like, is he gonna, sort of use up all his energy again? Like some of his previous fights, but he managed to hold back. He was pretty effective, pretty much most of the fight. Like I said, his confidence and it just sort of built up slowly over time within that fight, and it made him more elusive, more flamboyant. Like just sort of feeling the rhythm a lot more to land his strikes and to be effective. Also thought that in the clinch he had very good knee strikes. He was effective in all areas of striking, not just in the outside range, and all these it's weird. He threw a lot of Superman punches as well. Like he loves pushing off of the cage and doing Superman punches a lot. He does that a lot, which is actually really quite cool. Like I say, he wants to. It's nice to see that type of style because he wants to excite the crowd, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that there was a bit of a. They had a bit of back and forth at the weigh-ins and stuff like that, and I think that from that probably stemmed why he actually wanted to slap the guy more within the fight as well. And I have to admit that was a beautiful takedown right at the end. I'm pretty sure that must have took a lot of the wind out of Imadeev at the end of the round. So obviously with there being a slightly, controversial stoppage, maybe that had put the wind out of him quite a bit to be able to even sink that choke in, because that was a lovely takedown right at the end. Big suplex. So yeah, it just shows that he had a very good overall game. And yeah, Imadeev just was sort of just standing in front of him too much. Just literally just sort of plodding and not, when you've got a guy that moves quite a lot like that, you can't just stay there. You have to at least try and pressure in or impose your sort of game plan more. But yeah, very, very impressive performance by Pereira.
Yeah, very impressive. And like you say, the finish was very smooth. It came as Pereira took him down and locked in that rear naked choke for him to tap, although there maybe was some dispute about whether he tapped or not. Very quickly, did you guys think it was a tap? Mo, did you think it was a tap?
I mean, it's very hard to see from the footage, but like I say, that I personally thought that takedown was wore quite heavy on Imadeev. So, once he sunk that, he got that arm right in there straight away. As soon as he got him, landed a couple of punches and got his hand in there straight away. So, stop. Like Danny said, he would have won the fight anyways. Doesn't matter if they stopped it there or they stopped it after 3 rounds. It's just now he's got a finish on his record. So I mean, it's hard to see there really.
I think this would have been a much bigger talking point had Imadeev been slaughtering Pereira all the way through, and then he got choked out in this. Then I think but I personally I don't think that was a clear. To me, tapping has to be quite clear. But like I say, the refs are under extreme pressure and a lot of scrutiny of late, and it did go like this as he reached. So
yeah, I can understand why the ref thought it was a tap, basically.
Yeah. But that choke looked like it was going to go on at some point, seconds later. Anyways, Ferrer had a lot of energy about him. It kind of was sinking right underneath that chin from the get-go, and I think that it was going to be curtains either or way.
Indeed. Next up, we had Ovin St. Preux versus Alonso Minefield. And you get your walk-off KO for the night. Mo, talk us through this one, mate, because the finish specifically was brutal, but I thought Ovin St. Preux looked good.
Yeah, it was another very interesting fight. Minefield likes to be the sort of imposing fighter in all of his fights. He likes to come forward. He's very physical, very explosive. I mean, very similar to OSP, but he seems to like really put it on guys. He tries to walk forward and land big overhand shots and stuff like that. But OSP really did show how much more dynamic his striking was. I saw that he landed quite a lot of good body kicks as well. He landed very good counters. That's what inevitably led to the finish at the end, was that every time Minefield was trying to impose his will. I mean, there were a couple of times where, they were sort of still trying to feel each other out and feel their range and stuff like that, and there wasn't much action. But when there was action, OSP did well, especially off the back foot, to land some strikes, land those body kicks, and Minefield was sort of seemed a lot more one-dimensional than OSP was. And because OSP had a more versatile attack, that's what then led to him being able to set up the finish, which, a walk-off KO, I mean, it was really quite devastating. Literally, the guy just fell flat straight away. And it was, OSP has had a very mixed bag of fights. He's had fights where he's fought really well and done really well, had some highlight reel finishes, and somewhere, he's had sort of not so good performances. And but he's been a very entertaining fighter to watch the whole way through. There was a lot of hype from Minefield, and I can see why, because very explosive. If he lands that one big shot on you, it's going to be lights out from that guy. He's a very explosive fella and very confident as well within his game. But OSP did everything tactically in terms of striking to be able to neutralize the power in Minifield's hands, which then led to the KO. So yeah, it was a very good performance by OSP.
Yes, and I wonder from a UFC's point of view whether, obviously, like you said, Minefield is very highly rated. Whether they'd want the highly rated younger guy losing to the experienced campaigner, I don't know, but we'll see. Danny, what did you make of this one? Ovin St. Preux again, mixed bag, but he came in and he was strong tonight.
Yeah, I like watching St. Preux fight. I really do. He seems to use his cross hand like it's a jab. I mean, he don't set it up. He just throws it, and he can make it land. It's quite incredible. There's not many people who can just throw a cross hand like he does, and make it land like a jab does. He really is high percentage with it. Now that part impresses me. He does worry me a little bit with his slapsadaisical guard. Has his chin floating a little bit, but maybe that's because he was up against someone considerably shorter and stockier. Because for the most part, he had his footwork in place when needed, and he had his blocks there when needed. How do I say his name? What is it? Minefield, isn't it?
Minefield.
Yeah, Minefield. He looks all the part. He's muscled, stocky. He reminds me a lot of Melvin Manoff in his striking. Wears similar shorts as well. Looks very, very similar. The thing that was disappointing about him was his work rate. His work rate was never really huge. When he did go to work in that first round, it looked aggressive and full of energy, but it was unable to make good connections. But then as the rounds went on, he became less and less engaging and become the one foot working on the outside. And with someone with 4 inches in height over you, and I think he had reach advantage as well, that's not what you want to be doing. He stayed on the outside just too long. And I think he knew, and he must have been getting coaxed for his corner to come in. But of course, St. Preux was just waiting for him, and he caught him on the way in. And boy, did he catch him! and he put him out. I'm kind of excited about St. Preux. He's been around for a little while now, though, hasn't he? He's had a fair old few fights. So I know it's been a mixed bag, but I think he's got a chance of getting up there. I'm impressed with his delivery of his strikes. I'm just not so impressed with his defensive game, although maybe if he's fighting someone with equal reach or a longer reach and maybe matching more in his stature in terms of his height, maybe he'll tighten that up a little bit more. At least I hope so. And if he does so, I think he could be someone who could be making some waves in the top brackets.
100%. And Mo, who would you like to see St. Preux go next?
Who's in that? Who's in that top 10?
Yeah, I think definitely he deserves a fight within the top 10. I mean, how old is St. Preux?
Oh, that's a question. He can't be
38,
he can't be too young. He's got to be around 30 plus, surely.
I'll try and have a look.
St. Preux.
I think he's
37.
83. Jesus.
It's 37.
Yeah, 37.
Right. So, I mean, like I say, heavier guys can go a bit, later,
longer,
a little bit longer and stuff like that. So, who knows where, would you be able to argue for him to have he needs to, have another fight against a top contender and then, maybe have another fight and, maybe he can go for another run at the title. So, he's been having, some impressive performances. Obviously, he lost his last fight at heavyweight, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
I think he did.
I mean, in the light heavyweight division, obviously he's still an imposing character. So yeah, I guess it's a case of he just needs to fight someone within the top 10 to then prove himself in that top 10 bracket to then get himself another title shot. And then I think after he makes his last run, I don't see many other fights that he probably want to take.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right. I didn't realize he was like 37. I thought he was a little bit younger than that, I gotta say, but he has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But you don't get much more impressive than that knockout, mate. Let's be honest, Dan. I thought it was it's one of them, isn't it? It's like you can't do much more than just flat out KO someone and then walk off.
Yeah. It was like seeing a car skid off a track. He sort of come flying forward and just kept going forward because he was knocked unconscious straight into the fence. It was a
beautiful knockout.
A sweet one.
Flair.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing as well, the one other thing you could do is you can elbow someone in the head until they fall through the cage door. I mean, that always looks quite good.
I wonder where we've seen that one before.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere, but I cannot think where. And then next up, we had the main event of the evening, Danny. So the main event, meaning it's the most important fight.
There we go.
So as usual, last week we made our predictions after your poor effort the week before, where you got everything wrong and I got everything right. So you changed tack and you went for the, I suppose, lesser known fighter in Augustus Sakai. And I did say at the time, Alistair Overeem. I think I might have even said via TKO strikes after 26 seconds of round 5. I probably said that.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
But yeah, Alistair Overeem defeated Augusto Sakai by TKO via strikes at the 26 seconds into the 5th round. I thought Alistair Overeem looked good. Danny, what did you think of this?
Yeah, over 3 rounds, Sakai would have won that. That's my initial thing. So the fact that it went on for 5, I don't think he's ever done a 5-round fight. I don't think. I could be wrong with that, but I don't think he has. Sakai looked really good in the early rounds. To me, he was winning those early rounds. He was going on the bigger flurries. Now, whether it was over him trying to look after his aging fuel tank, well, we have seen patience from him before, but I think he knows how to fight a 5-round fight. And I think his experience literally is what won it. Because he managed to figure a way of getting Sakai down. Now, I thought it was going to stay on the feet all the time. I didn't think. I know Sakai is really heavy in the hips, and I just didn't think Overeem would have the tools to get him down. But he found a way, and it was an unusual way of getting him down. He was sacrificing himself, wasn't he, and throwing him over. It was an unusual way of doing a takedown. You don't normally see it done that way, but he stumbled across a way of getting him down, and he stuck to it, and he kept getting the result. And Sakai was looking a little bit vulnerable on his back. It seemed to take a lot out of his gas tank as well. He wasn't having as much venom behind his combinations when he was coming forward on Overeem after that first takedown that happened. And Overeem got him down in that final round and carried on putting it down on him. And it just got all too much. A massive learning curve for Sakai. I think he'll be a better fighter from this experience. But wow, Overeem. I mean, in my heart, I wanted Overeem to win. But as the previous week, I went with my heart and got all the results wrong. So I thought, hey, I'm going to go with who I think should win. And I really felt like Sakai should have won that fight. But, someone coming up the ranks, fighting with someone with more than double the amount of experience, and it actually showed. So fair play to Overeem. I mean, he's making himself relevant again, and he could even get back up to contention to fight for a title again at 40-odd years old. I think the only other time we've seen that was with Randy Couture, right?
Yeah. I think it was be interesting. I think there's a very good chance he's going to be right up there, mate. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, what an absolute legend.
As the way it's going.
I mean, without a doubt, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he's got to be one of the top of Hall of Famers. He's really done it all. He's fought top level K1. He's fought in just done everything. This guy, he's had a lot of fights, and utterly impressive. It'd be fantastic if he can get to 50 wins. I think he's up to 48 now, I believe. It'd be fantastic if he could, and if anyone can do it, Overeem can do it, especially after what I saw watching him from yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Mo? What did you enjoy about this one?
Yeah, I thought that was a really good fight as well. Sakai did a very good job of doing his blitzes. Like, he sort of had a very forward pressure blitzing style attack, getting towards the cage, and then landed shots. Had some very nice sort of clinch striking as well. Overeem sort of in those first 3 rounds of just covering up, blocking the punches, weathering the storm, and then moving out and trying to land some of his strikes. But Sakai, I thought, looked very impressive, looked very, very dangerous with his striking attack. But Overeem did well to sort of negate much of the power and intensity that was enforced on him by Sakai. But it looked very, very very nice combinations that he put, especially inside the clinch and stuff like that, working on the outside body up to the head and stuff like that. So that was really nice. What I thought was great was, Overeem getting the takedown. I think that really changed the momentum of the fight for sure. He had a very nice leg trip in the 3rd round. He had some very good ground and pound as well. When he did manage to take him down, he managed to land some very heavy, good ground and pound. And like Danny said, he sort of launched himself into a couple of those takedowns. It was almost like a single leg, but like a single leg misdirection sort of takedown that he had. But it was very effective for him. So credit to him for getting that. And then it was really the ground and pound was the main difference to getting him that finish, because Sakai really just had no answer for those takedowns or the ground and pound, although he looked very good in the standing aspect. So it was a very good win for Overeem. Very impressive from both fighters. Sakai's going to learn a lot from this fight. Definitely going to come into his next fight with a lot more experience and be able to up his skill sets and stuff like that. And I would definitely love to see Overeem have another shot at the title. He's definitely working towards that. I mean, he had a very, very impressive performance, and he definitely showed a very all-rounded skill set in this fight, managing to get the takedown, weather some heavy strikes, land his own heavy shots, and very nice ground and pound. So it definitely looks very bright for the near future for Overeem, that's for sure.
So Dan, did you think ultimately it experience which cost Sakai, or do you think it was a stamina thing where he would those final couple of rounds, or those extra couple of rounds of sort of cost him?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both, a little bit of his inexperience and also Overeem's extreme wealth of experience. I think there was a few things, to add in to the whole experience for Sakai. First time doing 5 rounds, not often being put on his back, and his first loss as well. All these other fights he'd been steadily winning. He's had some close fights, but he's been winning them. He's had a really good run since 2017 when he lost against Chuck Congo. I just think once he got put on his back and he got pushed into those championship style rounds, being round 4 and 5, I just think he didn't have a strategy or a game plan for the feeling of hurting, the exhaustion, and trying to think your way out of these difficult situations that Overeem was putting on him. Because there were times he was kicking Overeem and he really should have been scrambling to get back up to his feet. But he kicked Overeem off, expending a lot of explosive energy, and stayed on his back for Overeem to re-engage. Now, that is not something that an experienced fighter will do. When you kick off like that, it's with the intent to get up. He merely kicked him off just to bide him time, just to stop any more of that ground and pound. That is not the right thing to do. You kick off and you exert yourself in those situations because you're trying to create a scramble to get out and get up. He just did not do that. Now, whether he don't know how to do that efficiently and effectively because he's not covered that in his gym, in which case he's got to put that in, or was it just that he was just lost in the rounds, feeling that exhaustion maybe stopped him feeling like he could scramble up. But he didn't have the answers in those latter rounds. And when Overeem didn't have the answers in the first few rounds, which he was losing, he kept feeling around for the right answer, and he found it. And he stuck to it. And when the question was put on to Sakai couldn't do the same.
Yeah, I think so. I think Sakai shouldn't he shouldn't be too disheartened by it. I thought he was really very, very good, especially in those early rounds. Alistair Overeem used his experience as he should, and all round I thought it was a very good main event to top off a very good and very enjoyable UFC card. What would you give Fight of the Night to, Mo, out of those fights before I tell you what was given?
Fight of the Night. I really enjoyed that Pereira fight, just from all the crazy stuff that he was throwing. But I'll say it's between. It's a hard one, man. I'll say between that and OSP.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Pereira fight. I thought that was the one which really kind of stood out for me. What about you, Dan? Which one would you give it to?
Pereira for his performance. I think he had performance of the night. But for the actual fight itself, I really enjoyed the Overeem fight. I thought that was good because you saw adversity on both fronts. They were both cut and bleeding, and both had to change strategy. I thought that fight had it all. I really did. That was the one that it had me sitting backwards and forwards on my seat. I really loved it all round. Pereira was just so dominant, and that was great. I just think so. Certainly, he should have a performance of the night. But as for Fight of the Night, the one I enjoyed watching much was the Overeem Sakai.
Yeah, I was just reading then. There's some people have been quite critical of Augustus Sakai, saying he wasted a golden opportunity. Obviously to pick a big name off in Alistair Overeem. I think that's a bit harsh.
I agree. I think that's harsh.
Did very well, particularly early in the night, but ultimately he didn't get it. Like, he didn't finish it, did he? I suppose he did the good work in the early rounds, and then didn't. What's the word I'm looking for? He didn't.
Capitalize.
Yeah, didn't cast the one. Capitalize. Didn't capitalize on that early good work. Yeah, so that was interesting. And let's have a look. I'll do quick predictions for UFC next week, Danny, because you are on fire, my friend.
I'm on the fire. That's what it feels like.
So what have we got next week? got a main event, a female main event next week. So hopefully they'll continue the trend of exceptional fights. So the main event is Michelle Waterson versus Angela Hill in the strawweight bout. Who you got for that? Michelle Waterson ranked 8, Angela Hill ranked 13.
Michelle. I'm going to go Michelle.
Michelle Waterson for Danny Batten. I'm going to go with Angela Hill, just to go opposite. What about you, Modestas? Who do you fancy in that?
I'll say Michelle Waterson, in my opinion.
I think she'll probably win, but I got to oppose Danny just for the fun of it. And the other announced bout is Billy Quarantillo versus Kyle Nelson in a featherweight bout. Either of those stick out for either one of you?
Let's go Billy.
Billy.
I've not seen much of both fighters, so my prediction wouldn't be very credible.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? If you're not familiar with these guys, it can make it difficult. I'll obviously go with the opposite to Danny. I'll probably be right, but there we go. So yes, that's pretty much it. Next week we have Cage Warriors Welsh star Ben Ellis joining myself and Danny, and got some other names from the UFC and Bellator and Cage Warriors coming up soon. So keep an eye on our social media, which is at Danny Batten FS. All the shows, this and all the other series on Ace Podcast Nation, you'll find us youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation, and give us a follow on Twitter at AceCast_Nation, also on Instagram and Facebook and alike. Modestas, tell people where they can find the Baltic Gladiator on social media.
Well, you said that perfectly for my Twitter name. So yeah, I recently just changed it to just Baltic Gladiator for Twitter. For Instagram, it's MODYB24. Even though I want to get that changed to MODB UFC. Shout out to my girlfriend for coming up with that username. So obviously just to keep her happy. Obviously, I want to try and change it. No, I'm joking. Honestly, I like that name. So, yeah, we're definitely going to try and go with that one. And Facebook, just Modestas Bukauskas. So hit me up for any modelling deals if they're going about these days.
And me.
And Danny.
He's looking for the porn star contract.
Yeah.
You see me in the show, you know I'm the man for the job.
No comment.
The fantasy channel will be in contact shortly. Modestas, thank you for joining us, mate. Always a pleasure. Really enjoy chatting with you and hearing your takes.
Thank you so much for having me on again. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to both of you. I always have a really good time. And can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be on soon, mate. We'll have you on after your fight. Maybe do a little interview with you as well. And
awesome.
Whatnot. But the other thing, guys, keep an eye out for the shorter videos as well. They've got some MMA stars from various companies doing short interviews for extra content. Gotta love the content. Danny, I don't know what to say to you, mate. I gotta be honest. Just the moustache just puts me off. I can't look at you. No. You'll be back next week, of course, and we'll be joined by Ben Ellis. Until then, thank you to everyone for listening, watching, whatever you may do. Spread the word. Danny Batten Fight Show. I would put Danny's analysis and our guest analysis against anyone in the world for top level mixed martial arts analysis. So spread the word. Danny Batten Fight Show. See you next time.